Wonder if we can go. Breaking overnight now. President Donald Trump sending a clear message to North Korea. His warning, do not try us and do not underestimate America. The president's priority, curtailing Pyongyang's nuclear program. That is the centerpiece of this Asia trip. As we say good morning, welcome everybody. Wednesday here on Bill Hemmer, live in the South of America's newsroom. A lot to get to from overnight. How you doing, Sandra?
And good morning to you, Bill. I'm Sandra Smith. The president may be overseas, but back here at home, Democrats sweeping a pair of key governors' races in Virginia and New Jersey. More on that coming up. Meanwhile, President Trump is in China at this hour, a country the U.S. needs to help rein in North Korea. And during a big speech last night, the president making it no secret where America stands.
I hope I speak not only for our countries, but for all civilized nations when I say to the North, do not underestimate us and do not try us. We will defend our common security, our shared prosperity, and our sacred liberty.
Kevin Corke is traveling with the president in Beijing, 10 p.m. there. Good morning and good evening to you, Kevin.
And good evening. You're right. A very warm welcome for the president and first lady here. And you could really sense the charm offensive from the Chinese, from the welcoming ceremony over at the airport during the afternoon to this evening's festivities in the Forbidden City, which is truly one of the absolute marvels on this planet. I've had a chance to go there, and the president and first lady were there tonight. An historic evening for them. But while you're going to hear a great deal about the beauty and pageantry of the welcome, there is business to get to here. There is clearly a gulf, Sandra, between the philosophies of the two leaders as it relates to trade in North Korea that have to be bridged at some point. Now, on trade, as you know, the president wants concessions from China, including fewer barriers to get into the Chinese marketplace for American companies and less Chinese companies dumping their goods into the U.S. sector. By the way, we've been told to expect some deliverables on trade during this trip. Should make for a very interesting Thursday. Now, on North Korea, the president wants President Xi Jinping to apply the proverbial hammer on Pyongyang, cutting off their economic support and abiding by UN sanctions. That is, by the way, a theme carried with him from South Korea, where he addressed their National Assembly.
I also have come here to this peninsula to deliver a message directly to the leader of the North Korean dictatorship. The weapons you are acquiring are not making you safer. They are putting your regime in grave danger. Every step you take down this dark path increases the peril you face. North Korea is not the paradise your grandfather envisioned. It is a hell that no person deserves.
Strong words from the President of the United States. Now, I should also point this out. While in South Korea, the President actually attempted to go to the DMZ. Perhaps more history could have been made there. However, bad weather and fog scrubbing that surprise trip. Now, there is a lot yet to come for the president during his time here. In fact, tonight around 8 o'clock this evening, we expect a pretty dramatic opening ceremony. Another welcome for him, 8 p.m. your time, not our time. And then, of course, all the meetings at hand should make for a very eventful trip. Country number 3 out of 5. Sandra, we'll be here for you, but for now, back to you.
Thank you. Live from Beijing, Kevin Corke.
That tour continues back here at home. Meanwhile, an election that's gotten a lot of attention. The Democrat Ralph Northam defeating Republican Ed Gillespie in Virginia's governor race, and Northam now calling for unity as Gillespie offers his support last night.
We need to close the wounds that divide and bring unity to Virginia. Whether you voted for me or not, we are all Virginians, and I hope to earn your confidence and support as we move forward.
Governor-elect Northam is a good man, and I appreciate his service to our country and our Commonwealth, and I wish him nothing but the best success as our 73rd governor.
So now, the day after, Ronna McDaniel, GOP chairwoman, thanks for being on today, and good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I got a number of things to go through quickly over the next 4 minutes. I guess in the words of someone else, what happened?
Well, we lost 2 governor's races last night that Democrats typically win. These were in blue states. Virginia's getting bluer and bluer. I think what's very interesting with the Virginia race is that Ralph Northam started running ads saying, I'm going to work with this president. He moderated positions on sanctuary cities and statues, and we started to see him gain traction in rural Virginia. So he actually moved the needle by saying, I'm going to work with this president.
Also, this tweet from overseas, and the president sent this out right after the results came out. Ed Gillespie worked hard but did not embrace me or what I stand for. Don't forget, Republicans won 4 out of 4 House seats, and with the economy doing record numbers, we will continue to win even bigger than before. What about that comment about embracing
well, I can just tell you,
president?
I travel the country. I'm going to be in Iowa tonight. Our base is for our president. The enthusiasm for the president is still strong. You're seeing it with the record RNC fundraising. Voters want to see candidates embrace this president. And you saw in Virginia, Ralph Northam said, I'm going to work with the president. They want to see things get done. They want to see people work together across party lines. And that's a lesson I think everyone can take away from last night. And that race in Virginia.
Okay, here's another takeaway. Our voter analysis found the following, all right? Some on this screen is not going to surprise you, but one thing will. Women, blacks, college degree breaking for Northam. The moderates broke for him by 26 points. And I'm just wondering, the suburbs around Northern Virginia, and I know they've been trending blue for the past 10, 12 years, but the moderates breaking away, how big of a problem is that?
Well, like I said, well, first of all, the Northern Virginia, the Beltway of Washington, D.C., in no way represents the rest of the country. Okay, so let's put that aside. But when it comes to the moderates, exactly what I was just saying. Northam ran left to win the primary, and then he came to the middle. And he said, I'm going to work with President Trump if it helps Virginians. He changed his position on sanctuary cities. He flipped on the statues position. So he came to the middle, and that's how he won moderates. So if there's a playbook for Democrats, it's work with the president.
Should Ed Gillespie have embraced the president more than, given that answer?
Ed did work with the president. He had robocalls in and he had tweets. But yeah, I will always say to any candidate in our party, the greatest enthusiasm in our party right now is for President Trump. We're seeing it through the fundraising numbers. We're seeing it across the country. I see it as party chair. I absolutely think any candidate should be embracing the president. And I think Ed did.
One more thing here on the voter analysis we pumped out here. Was your vote important with regard to President Trump? 69% said yes for Northam and 30% went with Ed Gillespie, who said it was important. Democrats are now saying they see some light in this tunnel, and it's been a long time since they've been able to say that when you consider the last 4 races in various parts of the country. And they also believe they can raise money off of this. And you know how much money the RNC has raised and how much the DNC has lacked thus far. Does this give them hope after they see these results now from last night?
Listen, Bill, we're back to status quo. Republicans won 5 special elections, including Utah last night, that they should have won, and Democrats won 2 governorships that they should have won. So nothing really changed. They're going to try and create this big narrative. They should have won Virginia. They should have won New Jersey. But what we are seeing is that voters across this country want to see things get done in Washington. And at the RNC, we're seeing record fundraising in support of President Trump and his agenda. So as Republicans, we need to keep working on behalf of the American people and accomplish the things we ran on. And at the RNC, we're already in these battleground states getting ready for 2018. And I think we're better positioned than we've ever been in the midterms.
All right, on to the next one. Come on back real soon, okay?
Thanks for having me.
Ronna McDaniel, GOP chairwoman there in Washington, D.C.
Vice President Mike Pence and his wife will be traveling to Texas just hours from now to meet with those left devastated by the church shooting in Sutherland Springs. A prayer service will be held tonight to honor the victims of the massacre. This, as Fox News confirms, disturbing new information about the shooter. We're told he escaped from a mental hospital while he was in the Air Force. Brian Yennis is live in Sutherland Springs with the latest on this. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Sandra. Well, seemingly more missed opportunities and red flags as to whether or not this man should have ever purchased or been able to purchase a gun, killing 26 people behind me. These new revelations raising new questions as to why the Air Force did not report to the FBI, to the National Background Check Database, not only his violent background, but also his mental health, after we now know he was involuntarily committed to a mental health facility back in 2012. Now, according to an El Paso police report, we know know, the gunman escaped from the mental health facility in New Mexico in June 2012 while he was under pretrial confinement for a court-martial accused and later convicted of beating his wife and child. Now, the gunman was considered, quote, a danger to himself and to others when the police caught him after the escape at a local bus terminal. We do not yet know why he was specifically put in there in the first place. We also know that the gunman was caught trying to bring guns onto the Air Force Base, and he made death threats against his military superiors. All of this, as investigators say, they are trying to get into the gunman's phone.
At this point in time, we are unable to get into that phone. So it actually highlights an issue that you've all heard about before with the advance of the technology and the phones and the encryptions.
Now, all of this as the sheriff of his local town just outside of San Antonio says they are investigating whether or not they mishandled a 2013 sexual assault investigation in which this gunman was the rape suspect. After 3 months, the investigation stopped. They seemingly believed because he moved to Colorado. Sandra.
Some disturbing details coming to light. Brian, what will Vice President Pence, what are his plans while he visits there in Texas today?
Governor Greg Abbott, and we also know that he will speak tonight at 5 p.m. at a local vigil at a high school. Listen to what the vice president said last night at on the show Fox News at Night about the power of prayer.
And I believe in prayer. And I know that at this moment of such heartbreak and loss in that community, that what most Americans are most able to do is to pray for those families.
Authorities will release the names of those victims today. Sandra?
Brian Yanis, thank you.
We were just talking before the show came on about that smartphone, whatever brand it is. They haven't told us what it is, but
can't get into it.
Can't get into it, just like San Bernardino. So this is the debate that continues here. All right, in the meantime, that nitty-gritty talk on tax reform continues in committee, and the Senate makes its bill public tomorrow. So we'll ask Republican Senator John Thune what's in it later this hour. Plus, there is this.
I've been out on the stump in Virginia over the last few days, put about 700 miles on my car. Haven't gotten one question about Donna Brazile.
Democrats trying to keep their distance from former DNC chairwoman Donna Brazile, who is making new bombshell revelations, including claims about her predecessor, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Also, President Trump now in China with tough talk on North Korea, and that is a message Beijing has been waiting to hear. How will it be received? Ed Royce, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, is next on that here.
We will offer a path to a much better future. It begins with an end to the aggression of your regime and complete, verifiable, and total denuclearization. The world cannot tolerate the menace of a rogue regime that threatens with nuclear devastation. All responsible nations must join forces to isolate the brutal regime of North Korea, to deny it, and any form of it, you cannot support, you cannot supply, you cannot accept.
Strong tone there. President Trump, blunt words rather, for North Korea. Now in Beijing today is a high-stakes visit there that includes talks about the nuclear program in Pyongyang as well as trade. There's a lot on the line starting now. California Congressman Ed Royce chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Sir, thank you for your time today and welcome back to our program here, America's Newsroom. What are you hearing? What do you think so far now in Beijing?
In terms of the speech, obviously what the speech does is it sets the stage for the hard diplomacy that's going to follow in Beijing. It was reassuring to our allies and to South Korea, but we know that there is much more that Beijing could be doing because, in fact, it is the lifeline to the North Korean regime. And this sends a powerful message in advance of the president's arrival.
So what he's going to do is lean on President Xi again, and you know they have a relationship that goes back to the early days in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, the first couple of weeks of this administration. They're going to go after financial leaks at Pyongyang and try and get China to move on that. How much movement would you expect at this point?
Well, remember, the president has at his disposal a bill of mine that passed August 2nd, was signed into law, that would allow us to put much more financial pressure, would give every financial institution and company in China a choice. Freeze their accounts with North Korea, shut it down, or alternatively, do not do business with the U.S. That's the ultimate leverage here. But in addition, we heard last week from the top-ranking defector, most senior defector we've ever had before the committee. He was the minister in London from North Korea, and he shared with us the importance of continuing the momentum of these sanctions and on putting more diplomatic pressure against North Korea.
You can't get China to back down here. You have to tighten the noose, is essentially what you're saying there. And I
that's what
just
the
wonder
trip's about.
How much further Beijing's going to move on this. There'll also be an appeal to kick out more North Korean workers out of China. Will that happen?
And that needs to happen, too, because the paychecks go not to the workers. The paychecks go to the regime. So they need to shut all of that down, and we've passed legislation basically giving the executive branch the authority for us to enforce those sanctions against those companies worldwide. So this is part of the pressure, and the defector told us, the minister told us, this is the Achilles heel of North Korea, this life support system they have from Beijing. Shut that down, and they can't pay their generals, and they obviously cannot continue to build a multi-billion-dollar nuclear program. It rests upon our success here.
Here was the most effective line, I thought, in that speech. To those nations that choose to ignore this threat, or worse still, the president said, to enable it, the weight of this crisis is on your conscience. How is that going to be received?
Well, it is on their conscience, but it's not conscience that necessarily in authoritarian regimes animate people to action. What will animate them to action is the threat of shutting down access to trade. That's ultimately part of the dialogue here.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. We'll see how much further they move. Do you expect a handshake deal, anything to sign, or not?
Bill, I expect that what the president's after here is an understanding that it is up to Beijing to keep their part of the agreement with the United States. And ultimately, what the president has asked for is a denuclearization of North Korea.
Let's see how.
Look, we prevent South Korea and Japan from moving forward with nuclear weapons. It is now the responsibility of Beijing to do its part, and the president's going to face-to-face communicate that.
Thank you, sir. We'll see what we get done. Ed Royce from The Hill. I'm out of time. Thank you for yours.
Well, a sad morning for Major League Baseball. Retired All-Star pitcher Roy Halladay has died in a small plane crash. We will have some of the reaction that's pouring in from around the sports world. Plus, Bill Hemmer, are you ready for this? Twitter gearing up for a major change. How the social media site's now offering double the fun.
3 college basketball players out of UCLA released on bail in China. Strange story. They were arrested on suspicion of shoplifting. Among them, LiAngelo Ball, younger brother of the LA Lakers rookie Lonzo Ball. Awesome player, too. UCLA men's team is in China for their season opening game against Georgia Tech on Friday. They have been released on bail.
How's that? All right. To another sport, baseball. It is mourning the loss of former pitcher Roy Halladay. The 2-time Cy Young Award winner was killed when his small single-engine plane crashed off the coast of Florida. Halladay retired just 4 years ago. He was 40 years old. Phil Keating is live in Miami with more. Phil, did Halladay make a Mayday call?
A no Mayday call implying that the crash of his Icon A5 sport plane happened suddenly, and that would be supported by Halladay's own tweets in the past, that he loved to fly this plane fast and low over the water because it made him feel like he was a jet fighter pilot. Take a look at the promotional video from the Icon A5 on the company's website. You can really see how this small plane handles. The 2-seater amphibious plane is small and tight, flies like a race car, and Icon delivered Halladay's plane in October. Now, while while pitching, he was one of the best aces in his prime years. The plane was discovered upside down Tuesday afternoon in the shallow Gulf of Mexico waters. Now, from the Denver area originally, he retired in Florida near Tampa, and just Friday was with the sheriff in those same waters where his plane went down, doing a charity fishing tournament.
He was 1 in a million. It is a true loss for us. I have no doubt he is looking down with God up in heaven, because his heart was a heart of gold. He was an unbelievable human being.
Sheriff Chris Nacco clearly impacted by the loss of Roy Halladay yesterday. He even mentioned how Halladay personally paid for the agency to get a new canine police dog. Sandra.
Wow, Phil, and the reaction in the sports world has been devastating. What have we seen so far?
Tremendous sadness all around. Everyone basically describing him as #1 in the consummate professional, a great teammate, and extremely humble. You would never guess on the street that this guy was a pro baseball player with so many awards. This from the Philadelphia Phillies, quote, "There are no words to describe the sadness that the entire Phillies family is feeling over the loss of one of the most respected human beings to play the game." That's very strong. Yesterday, Halladay was flying alone and apparently filed no flight plan. He had a passion for flying, and he posted plenty of photos of himself with that plane on social media. And perhaps the most sad aspect of it all, he leaves behind a wife and 2 young boys whom the sheriff said he just absolutely adored. Sandra.
Phil Keating, thank you.
Very, very sad there. What a great player he was, too. Really left a mark in such a short period.
Great player, doing something he loved, apparently. He loved to fly.
40 years old, though. Way too young. Our best to his family. Make or break time now before tax reform. Vice President Mike Pence calling for support on the package for the tax bill and the repeal of the Obamacare mandate. He said this.
The President and I are both interested in seeing the House and Senate consider the possibility of repealing the individual mandate tax as a part of this tax reform bill.
Well, the House working really hard on details on that bill. The Senate goes public mañana with its own plan. Senate Republican John Thune next on That Live.
Plus, we're getting disturbing new information about that Texas shooter as survivors begin speaking out about the horror they witnessed inside that church Sunday morning.
Walk us through that day as to how she explained to you what went down inside that church as she was sitting there for Sunday services.
It's another day at church, just sitting there enjoying the sermon. Shots were heard coming in through the windows.
There is more disturbing new information overnight now surfacing on the violent history of the gunman behind the church massacre in Texas. Fox News confirming that he escaped from a mental hospital while he served in the Air Force, and that past now raising questions about why he was not flagged by the FBI. Police say every person inside the church was either injured or shot dead. Survivors now sharing their stories.
All of a sudden I hear like firecrackers popping. Ta 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 ta. Everybody started screaming, yelling. Everybody got down, crawling under, wherever they could hide. It was so scary, and that man was shooting. He was shooting hard. The Lord saved me, because I know it was my last day.
Vice President Mike Pence and his wife traveled to Texas today and will be watching that trip. A prayer service will be held later there tonight.
We need to cut taxes for the middle class in this country. We need to cut taxes on businesses so that American companies can be more competitive and be able to bring dollars back to this country to create jobs here. And we need to simplify the tax code.
That's Vice President Pence speaking in support of tax reform as the House moves forward with its bill despite pushback from both sides of the aisle. This as Senate Republicans are expected to release their own bill tomorrow. So what will be in that, and will it match up with the House plan? Joining us now is John Thune, the chairman of the Senate Republican Conference. Mr. Chairman, thank you for joining us this morning. It's a big week.
Sandra. It is a big week.
There's a lot at stake here, and we're just wondering, what do the next couple of days look like?
Well, for the House, of course, as you mentioned, they're considering right now their version of the tax bill in the Ways and Means Committee. We will roll out our version tomorrow and then we'll take it into the Senate Finance Committee next week, where we will mark it up and open it up to the amendment process and have a debate about it. But eventually we want to get both bills across the floor and hopefully a bill that we can put on the President's desk that will reduce the tax burden for middle-income families in this country, that lowers rates, that doubles the standard deduction, that expands the child tax credit. Those are all features that are agreed upon by both the House and the Senate and by the President that we think will make a real difference in the lives of American families.
So the Senate GOP plan, as you just mentioned, comes out tomorrow. What does that look like?
Well, it'll be generally, in some ways, it'll sort of follow. We have a unified framework the House and the Senate and the White House have all agreed upon, Sandra, but there are obviously some differences in the way that the Senate will approach some of the issues. But I think by and large what you're talking about is a bill that's pro-growth. I mean, we're looking for economic growth. We want to get greater growth in the economy, which creates better paying jobs, higher wages, more take-home pay for American workers. And the analysis being done so far on the House bill is that it'll allow families in this country, middle-income families, to keep $1,200 per year of their own money. The Tax Foundation has said that the bill will create 1 million new jobs, and there are analysts out there now who've also suggested that it will increase average annual take-home pay for families in this country by about $4,000. So it's jobs, it's wages, it's more opportunity and bigger paychecks for Americans.
But there is pushback, as we led into this segment, with coming from both sides of the aisle, and most recently Democrats are pointing out this fresh analysis on the Republican tax bill, the House bill. Congress's Joint Committee on Taxation basically peeled this apart and predicted that tax cuts for lower and middle income taxpayers would fade over the course of a decade, more so for them than the higher earners. Does that complicate things?
Well, I don't think, I mean, there are lots of, as I said, analysis is being done, and everybody comes to different conclusions, but the fact of the matter remains that the things that are the features in this bill, the main features, which are lower rates, doubling of the standard deduction, expansion of the child tax credit, are going to benefit middle-income families. And once those are put in law, those are benefits that will continue permanently. And so the goal that we have in front of us, as I said earlier, is to ensure that we are, one, delivering tax relief, lowering the tax burden on middle-income families in this country, getting a stronger, more robust economy that's creating better paying jobs and higher wages. We think that the framework that's been laid out, what the House is working on, that we're going to roll out tomorrow, accomplishes those goals.
All right, so as far as the bipartisan nature of this fight right now, one Democrat, Sandra Levin of Michigan, says they've made no effort to engage us, talking about his party. Mike Thompson of California says this is their show and they set the rules and they're driving the bus. Huge mistake not to let Democrats participate. But what we're now learning is that Gary Cohn yesterday sat down with a dozen Senate Democrats trying to sell this thing. And the president called in, and Sherrod Brown, a Democrat from Ohio, is saying that the president on that call said and told them rich people get hurt in this bill. We made it clear that we don't agree with that, said Sherrod Brown. Is the president perhaps trying to play both sides here?
Well, I think the president, again, wants a bill that he can sign into law that helps middle-income families, and hopefully there are some Democrats who share that view. If there are, maybe we'll get some to vote for this in the end. But the Democrats made it very clear going into this debate, at least Senate Democrats, that they didn't want to vote for a bill that delivered tax relief through all the income structures and that assumed any amount of growth in the economy in terms of the scoring for that bill. So those are the conditions the Democrats set out going in. But I still believe that in the end, Sandra, there are going to be Democrats who, when they see the features of this bill and realize the positive impact, the benefits that it delivers to middle-income families, are going to be available to vote for it. And I think the president's trying to make the effort, and I appreciate him doing that.
And I know you're in a time crunch. The last quick question to you: the corporate tax cut report this morning that the Senate GOP tax bill could delay the corporate tax cut. Will there be a delay?
Well, we're still finalizing the details of our bill. We'll roll that out tomorrow, and you all get a chance to look at it. But the one thing that it will do is it's going to reduce business tax rates, and we think that's critical. We're not competitive in the global economy. We're continuing to hemorrhage jobs in companies overseas that are taking profits over there and creating jobs there instead of creating jobs here. And so getting the rate down will help raise wages for American workers. And again, that's something that's good for our economy and good for American families.
All right, a big week. We really thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on with us, Senator.
Thanks, Sandra. Nice to be with you.
So the Twitterverse is expanding, and not everyone's happy about it. The social media platform doubling the character limit per tweet from 140 to 280. This comes after the company tested the idea earlier this year with a group of users, and some users say 280 is simply too long and that Twitter should focus on shortness and brevity. Or as @BillHemmer tweeted, 280 characters? Sad.
You really don't like this.
I'm getting caught up in following the conversation. I don't want the... Twitter trained me for 5 years how to figure it out with brevity, and that's kind of what I prefer.
You know what I think I just decided I'm going to do at the commercial break? I'm going to write a 280-character tweet.
Gosh, good luck with that.
And I'm going to put your handle on it, Bill Hemmer.
It's a novel, is what it is. Good luck.
All right, breaking news on the U.S.'s relationship with Cuba. What the U.S. government is now changing regarding sanctions on that country.
Also, Sandra, this just keeps on going. The new bombshell accusations, former DNC chairwoman Donna Brazile comparing the Clinton campaign to a cult. More on that in a moment.
Plus, it's now been 1 year since real estate mogul Donald Trump shocked the world by becoming the nation's 45th president. We will take a look back at that in a moment.
Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States, winning the most unreal, surreal election we have ever seen.
Even more bombshells now from Donna Brazile's new book, the former DNC chair blasting what she calls that committee's incompetence in response to the Russian email hack. Guy Benson, politics editor, townhall.com, radio talk show host Richard Fowler, both are Fox News contributors. And gentlemen, wow, she is the one who just keeps on giving. I've known Donna Brazile for a long time, and that debate question guy, notwithstanding, she is a terrific person and a great woman, but I mean, she is leaving no one spared in this book. How are you reading this so far, Guy?
Well, it's definitely interesting. It's a little early in the morning for popcorn, but I'm tempted to pop some more because this is a lot of fun from a Republican perspective or a conservative perspective. Not that that party doesn't have its own problems. Look at what happened in Virginia last night in that election. But look, I think that this is a couple things going on. First, Donna Brazile is, and when you write a book about something you've been involved in, you're going to give the most positive spin on it for yourself. So there's a self-serving element of this as well, trying to deflect some of the criticisms of her leadership.
Defending her own.
I think that's part of it. I think that's, and look, she's saying, oh, the thing was rigged for Hillary from the beginning. She also gave those debate questions to the Hillary camp. So there's some complicity there on her own part that she's probably trying to deal with. But I think she's also sending a very strong signal that the DNC and the party is messed up. It's been systemically flawed and plagued with problems for a long time. The leadership has failed. And I think she's also signaling the Clinton era is over in the Democratic Party. She's trying to send that signal at least.
She's going to talk to Tucker tonight, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yes.
She was on MSNBC today, Richard. This is how she described the campaign of Hillary Clinton. Just go ahead and listen here. Okay. Oh, don't have that sound? Okay, I'll paraphrase. It was antiseptic. There was no rumbling and no fumbling and no passion. I wanted passion. Passion is what you need in a campaign. Richard.
Well, there's some truth to that. If you saw last night in Virginia, that is what I think took Democrats over the edge and what was a clean sweep for Democrats. And likely we'll find out later this week that Democrats will take control of the lower chamber in this legislature because in Virginia, Democrats and activists showed real passion. To some extent, Donna Brazile is right on that particular point. I have to agree with Guy here on this idea that I think, you know, she's going to make this story sound as good as possible for her. But I also have to say what you said, Bill. I've known Donna for a very long time. She's been a mentor to many, including myself. And I think this book gives her an opportunity to say, here's what I saw as an expert campaign operative, someone who's been in this industry for 3 to 4 decades, and here are the mistakes that were made, and let's make sure that our party doesn't make those mistakes again. And Tom Perez last night said this is the new DNC, and hopefully he's right. And hopefully the DNC will learn from the mistakes of the past, and Donna Brazil's book will help them.